I'm Maurice Kelly, the Vice Chair of Pennsylvania Film Industry Association, and we're very lucky today because George Parra kindly agreed to share his knowledge and expertise with us. George Parra is the executive producer of Silver Linings Playbook, American Hustle, Nebraska, and many other award-winning films. And he was also assistant director on The Fast and the Furious, Legally Blonde 2, and many other amazing movies that we all love. So we're very lucky to have you here today. Thank you so much for sending the elevator back down and helping our aspiring filmmakers make it in the industry. So our first question for you, of course, is how did you start? Because it's such a competitive industry. So how did you grow up the ladder?
Well, I actually got a degree in television and film from San Diego State University. So I went to school down there, and then I had met a friend of mine whose aunt was a production manager in Hollywood, who gave me a break as a production assistant on a film. About 6 months after I graduated, I immediately drove to Los Angeles, lived in my uncle's garage in Burbank, and started working for this company. Well, this independent film, working with the director as his assistant, and then became an office PA, and then became a location assistant, then I became an assistant director. And I was on the project for like 6 months. I was very fortunate because actually a year later it turned out to be a very large film. And that was my first break in the motion picture business. And from there, I would tell everybody that's listening, you network and you meet people, you promote yourself. One job turns into a couple of other jobs, and you have a resume, and you start, sending it around. Much easier now due to the internet. So that's how I started. And fortunately for me, it was I think a lot of it has to do with being at the right place at the right time and meeting that production manager who had hired me. And the film turned out to be the original Terminator. So it was somewhat of a large independent film that came out, a year later. And, everybody realized who Arnold Schwarzenegger became, and James Cameron, and the rest is history. And that started off my career. After that, I would do anything to just stay connected to the business, whether it was commercials or anything really, feature films. I never really got involved with television, not by choice. It just kind of worked out that way. And then I started working on more films and got in the Directors Guild and kind of kept going.
Do you suggest for filmmakers who are starting out to go through film school the official way, or to just start out as a PA and learn on set by just trying out different professions? What do you think would be a better way to go?
I think the answer to that, and I've been asked that question many times, is a simple answer. It depends on the individual. Some people at the age of 18 are ready to go out in the world and get into the film business. And that's fine too, because frankly, unless you're going into a corporate position with a studio, there is never been a need to show your credentials as a graduate from a school. But if you're going to go work at a studio, for example, it's good to have those credentials, a Bachelor of Arts in something, film, television, anything really, psychology, anything. It's just impressive and gets you in the door. I think everybody's different. I personally wasn't ready to go to work and earn a living at the age of 18. I wanted to have the college experience, which I did, and sort of grow up and mature a little bit more. And by the time I got out of college, I was ready to work in the film business. For me, college was a means of figuring out what I wanted to do in the future, because upon entering college at the age of 18, I truly didn't want to become a filmmaker. I didn't have any intention of it. I wanted to be a photographer. So my major was industrial arts, and I learned a lot about photography. But then I realized that I actually wanted to get into the film business. And growing up in Southern California, in Burbank to be exact, I was sort of surrounded by lots of studios and lots of people that worked in the film business. Somebody's parents, somebody's aunt, somebody's uncle, the neighbor, whatever. It's just sort of all around. But I never really wanted to do that until I got into college. And I changed my major, got into the film department, and went there. It was a time for me to sort of grow up and figure that out. Other people, if you're 18 years old, you want to work right away, sure. See if you can get a job as a production assistant with somebody you know. It really is with somebody you know. So it's a bit tricky, as you can imagine.
Yeah. Now we have a more technical question. What are the differences between the duties of different types of producers?
Everyone asks me that. And it's a very long question, or it can be a very short question. If you look at credits in either television or film, there are a number of producers, types of producers, from associate producer to co-producer to executive producer to creative producer on television to all kinds of different, and to a producer as well. It's a complex question because a lot of times it can be as simple as introducing somebody or bringing in a component like a director into a project, even though you're not part of the project. You can get an executive producer credit. If you're bringing the financing and you make an introduction to a financier, you can have an executive producer credit. As a full-fledged producer, 90% of the time, you have to own the material, find the financing, and execute the entire film from the beginning to the end, and deliver the film to a sales company and get it in theaters or Netflix or whatever. That's usually the producer's role. But executive producers and all those other titles, it can be, you name it. There's a million reasons why you can have, a lot of films will have like 12 producers, 15 producers. I've been on films where I'm one of 15 producers. And ironically, I haven't met 10 of them. I've met 5 of them. I never meet them. They just, I don't know who they are. They're just either attached to the studio or attached to the production company that's making the film, but they're never around. They're just they get producing credit on all the films. So they get a little, a credit, probably some sort of a fee. You never really see them. So it's a very loaded question. A lot of times you have 15 credits as producers and 3 people are doing all the work. Those are the people that usually take it from beginning to the very end. And those are the ones that also profitize on it. So if you're making profit on the box office, they're going to get the net profits on them. So it's a very complex question and answer. There's no rules. Everything it's different. So it's complicated and different in every situation.
Okay, makes sense. Now, how do you select a project to work on, and how can you tell that the project is promising?
Well, that's tricky. That's a good question, because I've worked on projects where you have a really great script, a really great director, and a really good cast, and they turn out to be horrible and not successful. And then I've worked on other projects where it's an okay script, the director is kind of new, and the cast is okay, and it turns out to be very, very good. So it's a tricky thing to figure out. What is in demand or what's popular a year from when you're making it, when you're actually filming it, and it gets released, is hard to predict. It's sort of like the same with music. What's going to be popular a year from now? We don't know. I look for projects that my most important thing is collaboration with the filmmakers, that I get along with them, and that with any luck, the director and the writer who wrote this fabulous script that you think's fabulous, the director will execute it and turn it into a magical film. But again, it's very unpredictable, very unpredictable. What's fantastic. For example, I was an assistant director for a friend of mine, Rob Cohen, on a project that I thought was an okay script. This is going back 20 years. And I always use it as an example because it surprised me how successful it became when it was the original Fast and Furious. And at the time, I personally thought, this is fun, this is interesting. I love cars, and who's Paul Walker and Vin Diesel, who's that? And then when it came out, it was like we reinvented the wheel. It was like just so big and successful. So that's an example of a bit of luck, good directing, good acting, and sort of a formula that makes, gets very popular. I've also worked on big studio pictures that are just complete disasters, and they're just spending money and money and money. And no matter what happens, they can't make it good. So it's, if you think of actors and directors, they all have flops and unsuccessful projects. you think it's going to be good, but it doesn't turn out to be good, and the other way around.
If you, like you said, it's an amazing director, it's great cast, great script. Like, where does it go wrong usually? What happens? How do you prevent that?
You try your best. You hire, you just some films, everything lines up on perfectly, everything, and it just works. It just works. I've worked on several of those. So you can hedge your bets by working on a great script with a great director, with great actors. That's really your goal, is to work with, the first piece of the importance is the script. That's the most important. That's the Bible. If you don't have a good script, it's really hard to make a good film or a good project. So you have a good script, and then you get a director that brings it to you or is attached, or you find a director that is most suited for that material. It's like cooking a good meal or writing a good song. You hope for the best, And that's sort of what it is.
Nice. And that takes us to the next question. When you get involved with a project, do you already get involved when there's a director who you admire and actors and already some budget secured, or do you sometimes start with just the script?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
They're my projects. It's usually something that I found a script that was given to me. I buy the rights or option the rights and then take it from beginning to end with finding a director and then financing. And then, so you take it all the way through. A lot of times I come in, there's already a director, there's already a script. Maybe there's one actor, and then they call me and say, hi, usually somebody I've worked with before, George, what are you doing? Read the script, see if you want to be part of it. And that just happened last week to me. So it's not my script. I didn't start it. The director wrote it, and he wants producers, and I'm coming in to produce with his producing partner. So it's a little bit of everything you mentioned. As a producer, you can come in any part. As a line producer, executive producer, sometimes someone will get fired and they'll need another producer to replace him. I've come in to do that. So it's a little bit of everything.
Now, what is typically the first thing that you do when you come aboard as the producer?
Well, you find the script, good material that's sent to you by a writer or somebody. You find a director who becomes the filmmaker. I think finding a director and an actor or two are the most important things, and usually in that order. The directors are the sort of the captain of the ship, and then you surround them with, you cast it. And then once it's ready, at that point, you can probably get some financing and you hire a line producer or an executive producer to put the film together with crew members and cinematographers and costume designers and all that. So it's usually hiring the director first and followed quickly by cast, which is usually approved by the director. So you just need one good actor to usually drive a film. And those are the steps.
With all the time constraints, budget limitations, and other challenges, how does one keep inspiration, creativity, and authenticity in the industry in general and in personal work?
Well, they have to work hand in hand. You have to come in on budget and on time. And at the same time, you have to be as creative as possible within those budgetary restraints. So it's a fine line for sure. Many films go over budget. So it's a fine line, and you have to, as a producer, be very cognizant of both. You have to be creative and know what you can afford and what you can't afford depending on your budget level. So whether you're making a $10 million movie or a $40 million movie, it's a big difference. I can't hire that actor because I can't afford him, but I can hire this actor who's really good. So it really depends on how much your budgetary, your money goes, how far it goes, to be as creative as you can within that box. It's tricky.
Now, what are some ways to effectively, and that's relevant to just today, what are some ways to effectively protect the set and yet being most efficient with the budget right now during the whole pandemic stage?
Been dealing with that all day. It's an ever-evolving situation, and it's real time every day. The unions have guidelines now. SAG in particular, the Screen Actors Guild, has their guidelines. They want to protect their actors and on sets. There's not a lot shooting just yet, but there are a lot of guidelines. You have to increase your budget to allow for all that testing, safety, PPE, and it kind of changes. It's evolving because like the COVID's evolving every day in the news, so is business. College football is probably not going to play this fall. Pro football, we hope, don't know. Along those same terms, the film industry and the television industries on a daily basis is evolving. It's just like slowly, a movie that I wanted to shoot in New Mexico can't shoot there because they're not open for business. But yet I can shoot in Wilmington, North Carolina, or Utah, the same project, because they are open for business. So it's ever evolving and extremely time consuming, and frankly, like the rest of the world with everything we've all put up with, a major, I want to be polite here, pain, time consuming, expensive, and difficult. So it changes daily, the guidelines and the needs and the how do we fly there? How do we make it safe? But you can go on the websites for all the unions. They have the guidelines now, and it's slowly evolving to a point where it's going to become normal. And someday when we have vaccine, then it'll really change. But in the meantime, very time consuming and slow.
Yeah. Hopefully not for long. Hopefully things will be back to normal on set.
Yes, for everybody, for all businesses.
Yes, indeed. Now, what are the ways to promote and support diverse, equitable, and inclusive workplaces?
Cognizant of your hiring, who you're hiring and who works on, if I have a 100-man crew or a 200-man crew, qualified diversity, wherever you are. The Directors Guild, for example, they've always had a code of diversity that you have to adhere to. So just be smart about your hiring. I mean, I've worked on projects where we made a point of the material being sensitive to a certain thing that we hire a lot of people from that race. It's all possible, and you just have to be smart.
Now, what is the process for aspiring filmmakers to ensure budget versus how it is ensured for the big budget films? So what's the difference in working with the budget for films of different levels?
It's sort of the same formula, it's just on a smaller level.
Okay.
It's like if you want to build a 2-bedroom house or you want to build a 10-bedroom house. The budget's going to be different, and it's the same thing in the film business. You're making a smaller film, an independent film for $1 million, or you're going to make an independent film for $20 million. It's the same restraints, it's just smaller levels. Instead of spending, $100 on a piece of equipment, you're going to use a $50 piece of equipment. It's just a smaller appetite. My budget levels are anywhere from $3 million to $45 million. But it's the same formula, it's just smaller. Again, it's sort of like building a small house and or a large house. And the restraints are the same. It's like you only have this much amount of money and you cleverly make it fit. You can't overspend. You can't buy a king size bed for the master bedroom because it won't fit. You buy a queen size bed. It's the same restraints. You still have the same problems. The interesting thing is if you work on a large studio movie that's like $50 million movie, you never have enough money. If you work on a $2 million movie, you never have enough money. It's the same problems every time, every single time, which you overcome by just making it fit. It's the same formula, it's just smaller or bigger.
So that brings us to the formula question. What is the formula for ensuring budget? Because a lot of filmmakers start by just fund. Again, we're talking about just starting point when you're putting together some short films for the festivals. You just start by fundraising, all those campaigns, but then you get to the bigger level projects. And that's a big change in terms of how you bring money to the project. So what is the process in those bigger projects? How can independent and aspiring filmmakers transition?
There are many financiers that are looking for independent projects. They're looking for material. Ironically, right now, there's a lack of material because there hasn't been a lot of filming. So there is a lot of people looking. Financing's tricky. There are a lot of companies that lend money for films. You can use sales companies to pre-sell your film. You can find independent financing from smaller companies. There are companies like a Lionsgate or like, well, nowadays, Netflix, Hulu, Apple, they're financing lots of films. If you have a good piece of material, you know, you can try and sell it to them and they'll finance it. Independent financing is a bit trickier because it's a risky investment. It always is. There's a good chance it's not going to make its money back. It may break even, and it could be very profitable. So yeah, just meeting financiers and knowing them. I mean, it's not like you can open up the yellow pages and you'll see financiers. It's really about relationships. There are a lot of producers that all they do is find financing. They're not really involved in the making of the film. They're more like businessmen, yet they're producers because they're finding funds for filmmaking. Those are the kind of guys you want to get to that I always try and use that will finance my films or somebody else's films. You just have to find a financier that'll love the material you have. That's the first step. If you have a good piece of material, a good script, then find a financier or a producer that can help you find the financing. So it's about the relationships or the introduction to that sort of person. Then it all starts slowly falling into place. And a lot of times it's not just one financier, it'll be three. So they'll all put in pieces of the money and suddenly you have $5 million. There's no real formula to it. It's so different and unique financing that it's hard to explain somewhat. But it's really about finding a financier or a producer that has access to financing. That's really the first step.
Okay. Now, you mentioned networking. I actually had that question. Where can aspiring filmmakers find networking opportunities in the industry? And what are some secrets to effective networking in this industry?
Strong alcohol? No, I'm kidding. No. Networking, film festivals. There's all sorts of like, whether there's so many film festivals now. Go and attend as many parties as you can. Go to the films, get invited to the parties afterwards. A lot of networking. You know, if you go to like Toronto or Sundance or South by Southwest, everyone's networking, whether you're an actor, producer, or a writer, or everything in between. They're all networking, talking, meeting. Oh yeah, there's a financier over there. He's looking for comedies. A lot of networking at film festivals, after parties, and there's a lot of networking at those places. That's really probably the largest volume of filmmakers from A to Z that people are in one place at one time, one city. So yeah, that would be my suggestion.
So do you believe that film festivals, not just as a participation as a viewer, but actually submitting your film festivals would be the way to get your film to the big screen?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So like, I think if you've made a film that needs to be sold, so it has distribution, Sundance, I think their September 30th is their deadline. So you submit the film, you contact Sundance, you give them a copy of your film, they'll view it, and then you either get turned down or you get not turned down, you get accepted. And that's how you get into film festivals. A lot of the film festivals are not as stringent as Sundance, and you can be looking for films because it's a smaller film festival. Those are easy to get into. That's the easiest way to sell your film. People have to see it to want to buy it.
Thank you. Now, from the actors, there was a question whether aspiring actors can possibly get leading parts in the big budget films, or there's no way to skip the under 5 roles to grow to that?
Acting is extremely hard to break into. You have to know either a good casting director that knows you, that'll promote you, or several casting directors, usually several. You have to have a good agent. And if you don't have an agent, find one, a manager, someone that can promote you, because it's hard as an actor to say, come to me. If I have a film, the only way to come to me is via a casting director or an agent. Casting directors are very important because they're going to cast the film. The more work you do to build a body of work, can be presented and have a reel, the better. And again, you could have 2 lines on a small film and someone will see you and you have something unique and see that part and go, I want that woman or that guy to play this person in my film. So it's really about promoting yourself. It's not easy. Not easy at all.
Yeah. Now, for the screenwriters, what are the ways to get the script into the hands of the producer? And another part of the question is more relevant again today. Should the scripts reflect the current COVID limitations? Or should they, just considering that it's going to take a while to put it together, they should not concentrate on that and just
Yeah, as a writer, I wouldn't think COVID should affect it in any way. How to get it to producers? There's a website that everybody may or may not be aware of called IMDb, Internet Movie Database, IMDb, and you could look up anybody that's in the movie, film business, television business, like myself or anybody, and you can look up their credits. You can look up their emails are usually posted there. And I get, I don't know, between 10 and 20 submissions per week from unknown writers. I generally ask for synopsis, and if it sounds like something interesting, I'll go send me the script, and I'll send the script. They'll send the script, and if it's amazing, then that's good. So that's the way to get it to producers. You can find their emails. You're not going to get it to Steven Spielberg. It's not you can't reach him because it's not that easy. His email's not going to be posted. But there's hundreds of independent producers like myself, if not thousands, that you can find their email and send them a script, introduce yourself, and do it that way. If you can somehow get an agent as a writer, they'll promote you as well. Usually it's by selling one script that you get an agent, you're eligible to get an agent, and the agent will do all the work for you. But as a starting out writer, if you've written something magic, then send it to these guys. Everybody's different. Some people answer, some people don't, but
That's exactly the practical advice we're looking for in these webinars, when people think it's so unreachable, but here you are, if there's an email, just send it. You just need something real to many.
Just send an email, and hopefully it won't get into their spam. I mean, I receive a lot of emails like that, a lot, that say, hi, my name is so-and-so. They all have clever ways of getting your attention. Like, you're the lucky winner today in the lottery, blah, 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 blah. My name is so-and-so, I'm a writer, and I wrote a script about, blind dogs, whatever, I don't know. So, yeah, and again, if you're in a room full of filmmakers at either a film festival, a party, a dinner, the best way is self-promotion, right? Whether you're an actor, a writer, producer. People always ask me at universities where I lecture, that I do a lot. Some kid in the front row raises his hand and asks me, so what's the best way to break into the business? And it's a simple answer for me is write a script, write a good piece of material. That really truly is. If you're a talented writer, it's quick. You can move forward. To do what I've done, to start from the bottom and up, takes longer. So write a script. I mean, writing is I can't do it. I really can't. I struggled through that in film school. But if you have that talent, use it, write it, be creative, be smart, because it all starts from the script.
Thank you. It was very inspiring. Which project was the one that you found most personally fulfilling, and why?
That's a tough one. Probably ones that became very good films and successful that I enjoyed making. Process itself was fun, and what you want to do as a young filmmaker was, I want to make movies because it's fun, and a lot of them aren't, trust me. But the ones that were successful, that became good films, that were enjoyable to make, with great collaboration, great filmmakers, great directors. Those are my favorite. And if I was to name them, one of them was in your town there, Silver Linings Playbook.
Nice. Yeah.
That was an enjoyable, fun. I mean, that's one of David O'Russell's greatest films. That one always stands out. I've also worked on projects with Alexander Payne. Sideways, the wine movie, which was always an amazing, that was a great experience. The Descendants, which we shot in Hawaii, which was fantastic. With David, we did American Hustle in Boston and in New York. So it was just films that are successful both financially and everyone gives you a pat on the back. You did a great job. Oh my God, it was so good. which always feels, and at the same time, it was an enjoyable experience. So I think those four are probably it. But Silver Linings Playbook in Philadelphia, that was a great experience.
It was.
And it turned out to be an amazing film.
Indeed. Actually, one of the questions was, do you have any collaborations planned with David O'Russell again?
He hasn't directed in a while. We did Joy 3 years ago, and he was developing and running it. No, I don't have anything right now. He hasn't been. He's always got like 10 balls in the air, but he hasn't announced any directing or anything moving forward. Same thing with Alexander Payne. He directs like every 5 years.
Wow.
So he doesn't work a lot by choice.
And something amazing. So maybe that's a perfect system for them.
Yeah. David directs quite a bit more than Alexander, but directors don't direct nonstop. There's only like 2 or 3 of them that do. Usually it's one project every 3 years. By the time you develop it and write it or rewrite it, it takes a while.
That actually comes along with the question of balancing personal life with the hectic schedule of filmmaking business. So I see you mentioned some directors just take years off, but what about the ones who don't? What is the way to just find that balance?
I think it's different for everybody.
Okay.
Depending on who you are you married? Are you single? Do you have kids? Do you not have kids? It's a fine line. It's difficult. I mean, there's been a lot of years where I'm gone from home for 4 months at a time, and then I'm home all the time. So it's different than most jobs. So you have to be able to learn how to coordinate your personal life with your professional life. It's with the right partner that understands it, and you have to somehow make sure it all works. But I think it's different with everybody. But it can be tricky. It can be hard. Life on the road, it's tricky. People that have been married in this business for a long time, they've learned how to make it work. I have, and it's just accepted, and it's just the way of life. It's not your normal 9-to-5 job ever. I come to Philadelphia for 4 months, but there's benefits as well. Like my kids have traveled all over the world and all over America, but then sometimes they don't see daddy for a month straight. So it's I think it's different for everybody.
Now back to the set. What are some challenging situations that you've encountered, something stressful, and what is the way to just deal with that stress? And I'm sure it happens all the time, but what's the way of dealing with it properly?
On a daily basis, 50 things could go wrong.
Oh my.
Oh yeah, it never goes smooth ever.
Okay.
It's about,
well, that's good to know that it's okay when it doesn't go smoothly.
No, there's always something that happens. For me, my success has been that I think producers have to be quick to think on their feet, improvise. I've had crazy situations like.
Care to share?
Well, like where's the wardrobe truck? Well, it rolled on the highway and it's 50 miles behind us. You know what I mean? Things like that. So then nobody can get dressed. None of the actors can get dressed. I've had rainstorms, snowstorms, who knows? Anything. There's so many things that can go wrong. So you have to be able to quickly think on your feet and improvise, and say, okay, hypothetically, all right, have the actors wear their own clothes, whatever works to keep the camera rolling, because it's an expensive per hour situation. You just have to think quick on your feet, and there's always some dramatic situation you have to figure out. I think it's just quick thinking. You have to think quick, improvise. It's always challenging. I mean, there are days where like everything goes smoothly and you go home and everyone's happy. There's many days like that, but there's also a lot of days where it's like, oh my God, what happened? Never boring.
That for sure. That industry is never boring. Now, every set has its own personality. How do you ensure that positive attitude on your set when the situations can get stressful and hectic? And how do you ensure that positive attitude?
It's about the personality of the people in charge, right? I'm never the only producer, and personalities are different. Some people can be very dramatically crazy in situations like that. Other people can be completely calm. And I've always been the calm one. I was an assistant director for a long time, running large movie sets for studios. For me personally, it's remaining calm, treating everybody respectfully from the bottom up, and hoping for the best. Calm. There's so many things that are going on all at once that if you don't remain calm, I think it's a problem. And a lot of people aren't. And that's fine. It works for them. Some people operate really well in massive chaos, chaotic sets, where it's like, and they love it. I mean, me personally, no. And the people that I surround myself with, or the people that over the years have rehired me over and over again, it's because we have the same sort of personalities. So it's worked for us, and it'll continue working. Life's too short. We're only making a movie. So it seems to have worked for me. Calm, polite, treat other people like you want to be treated, and you'll be fine.
Indeed. So 3 main pieces of advice for aspiring filmmakers. Calm, I'll take it as number 1. You have to remain calm. What would be the other 2? Something that they have to remember as they're going through this crazy adventure.
Oh, God. I think you have to enjoy it. Enjoy the process. So I remember interviewing production assistants when I was an assistant director, and they'd never done it before. They were getting into the business, and they're like, well, what's going on? And they're like, so many questions. And the thing is, if you don't enjoy the process, you're going to be pretty miserable, because we work long hours, extremely long hours. I think doctors and lawyers are the only other 2 crazy professions that work that sort of hours. And I'm not comparing myself to a doctor or an attorney, but we work long hours. So if you don't enjoy it, you're going to be incredibly miserable. You have to enjoy the process. Now, most people stay in the business because they love it. I mean, they just love making movies, love it. And that's good. That's the way it's been for me. And then other people will be in the business for 5 or 10 years, and it's like, whatever happened to so-and-so? And they're like, well, he's a realtor now. He quit the business because they didn't enjoy it. You know what I mean? They were not happy working long hours, doing sometimes things you don't want to do. And, as a production assistant, for those of you PAs in the audience, you got to suck it up. It's like, get coffee, sweeping, whatever, driving at 3 a.m. to go get whatever. It's not glamorous, but if you enjoy it, you're going to succeed. So that would be one that I would say. And the third one would be just to be as creative and smart as possible. And with any luck, you'll succeed.
Yeah, luck and hard work. So our final question is, who would you like to nominate as the next person to send the elevator back down and help our aspiring actors and filmmakers make it?
Oh, now, anyone?
Anyone who is already a role model and who has already made it, either actor or filmmaker, but preferably who you know personally, so you can nominate them, and who would be willing to join our mission.
I'm working with a guy now that I've worked with for years and years and years. His name is Lars Winter.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll send you the information.
Thank you.
You bet.
Hopefully Lars will also join our mission. But thank you very much, George. We appreciate you sending the elevator back down.
Thank you. All right. I'll talk to you later.
Have a good night. Thank you everyone for joining us. We appreciate your time as well and hope that you've learned a lot that you can use on set now.